Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tipsy Testing. This is Inflectra's virtual happy hour where we talk about software testing, test automation, DevOps, communities, leadership, project management, and life in general. Now, you understand why it's called software testing, but tipsy? Because cheers.
Cheers. Cheers.
My name is Taylor, and I'm the head of business development here at Inflectra, and I will be moderating today's conversation. Now, let me introduce our guests going alphabetically. We have Adam Sandman, even though my name says, my face says Adam Sandman, as a gentleman above. And Adam has been working in the IT sector for about 20 years. He has expertise in software architecture and software development, agile transformation, test automation, project management, so on and so forth. At the moment, Adam is a director of technology here at Inflectra. And having worked with Adam for over 3 years now, I have to let you in on a little secret. Adam has been in the space for so long that he can recall and or competently talk about any piece of software or technology for the past 20 years. So, hashtag bragging rights. That's a superpower.
I guess.
Anything else you want to say about yourself, Adam? Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I've sadly been doing this for way too long. I started programming at the age of 8, and as I think if you were on last week's call, you'll learn that my parents, I came from Wales, and a small town, a mining town in Wales, where they couldn't afford computers. So I made one out of paper. My parents were so embarrassed. My babysitter was like, you should get this guy a computer. So they actually bought me a real computer. And it was an 8-bit. 32 kilobytes of RAM. The kids nowadays are like, what? Kilobytes? What's a kilobyte? It's like a thousandth of a megabyte, which is a thousandth of a gigabyte. So it's like 1/millionth of the size of your iPhone, but it's bigger than a laptop. And with that great computer that I had, I wrote the game of Risk and some other cool games that you can still find on emulators today. So if you want to see anything I wrote when I was a kid, they're all available on emulators on various, open source libraries.
Bit of a nerd.
Yes, so but now nerds are cool.
I know.
Even with the old turtleneck.
Very fashionable to be a nerd now.
It is now.
All right, let me introduce our second speaker guest, the one and only Owen Gotimer. Now, according to his LinkedIn profile, Owen is a bit of a Renaissance man. He's, let me think, an entrepreneur, a journalist, a software engineer, am I right? Social media advocate, and most impressively, he's a donut connoisseur. I have so many questions about that. Now, Owen is currently working at Techwell as a community manager, and he hosts a podcast called 404 Podcast Found. Now, that's podcast about software engineering and all things technology. Welcome to Tipsy Testing, Owen, and thank you for joining us. Now, do you want to add your superpower to match Adam's or outdo Adam's?
Oh, I don't know if I have a superpower that can outmatch Adam's, but I would say, some additional things about myself is I'm really a small town sports fan who's got wrapped up in the software community and loving kind of getting to learn about the software world and about technology and the great people who are in it. So I'm happy to be here with you all today.
Cool. Do you want to tell us a few words about your podcast?
Yeah, for sure. So the podcast started about a year ago now, actually, which is really cool. We had this idea to start a podcast talking about all things tech. So we talk about software testing. We talk about agile and DevOps practices. We talk about security. We talk about tech and work life just in general as well. I get to travel a lot with my job, unfortunately not right now, but I get to travel a lot with my job under normal circumstances, and I get to meet a lot of really cool people. I just sat down with those people and just had some really cool, genuine conversations about technology and how it's helping to change the world.
Yeah, fantastic. If our viewers are not familiar with 404 Podcast Found, it is available at www.stitcher.com on the podcasts.
Yeah, it's also available at techwell.com/podcasts. So That's an easy way to find it. Yep.
And you forgot
No.
one skill. I mean, Owen is also very skilled as a tour guide, because whenever we go to any of the Techwell conferences that are not in, resort areas, he's able to give us an amazing tour of Toronto and Chicago.
Yeah, we've done Toronto and Chicago. Adam's been with me on the tours. It's a lot of fun. I'm a huge history nerd, to use the maybe that's where Adam and I have our similarities.
Yeah.
So I love learning about new cities, and yeah, Adam's been on the tour twice in Toronto, once in Chicago. Total blast. And potentially maybe one coming up in Washington, D.C. sometime this fall.
Yes,
This
indeed.
October, if not this October, next October, depending on the situation.
Well, shamelessly plugging InflectraCon into this conversation, we are having our conference, hopefully, in person, in real life, in October 1st and 2nd, and Owen so graciously agreed to, if it happens, to be our tour guide. So
thank you.
Stay tuned. We will hopefully starting to talk about InflectraCon very soon, once this craziness is past a little bit. Okay, so now on to more important things. Let's get started. So how is everybody feeling today, this week, this month?
You can ask Owen first.
Well, it's Friday. Friday, and it's the end of the day, so the weekend is here. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone is, the whole world is going through these bizarre challenges together. For some of us, like myself, I'm grateful that I still have an opportunity to come to work every day. I have worked from home full time for almost 2 years now. So there's not a tremendous amount of change for me in terms of my work life. I'm not getting to travel, like I mentioned. So that's definitely been a bummer. I was supposed to be flying to San Diego tomorrow morning. Instead, I am at my house still today. So, but yeah, I'm grateful that I still get to work. And definitely looking forward to seeing what the future holds once all of this passes.
Yeah, that's true. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, it's been a crazy month. I mean, we've been dealing with this since I think around March 3rd, when we first emailed the company to tell everyone that we were going to start enforcing some measures ready for the virus, and it kind of rapidly accelerated here in the DC area after that. Like Owen, I mean, I was looking forward to traveling to San Diego, to Chicago, Orlando, many of the same places that Owen's would have been going to. So it's been sort of like it's great. I mean, we had a bottle of whiteout, and I'm going to my calendar downstairs. It's like whiteout this month, this week. So yeah, that's been kind of interesting. On the other hand, we've had some really good conversation with people, because a lot of our clients who normally you get very transactional emails. Oh, do this, process this order, renewal, all this stuff. Every email now seems to have a much more human tone to it. People, before they say, can you renew our software, which is great, they're like, how things in America, things in Italy are bad, here, but we're doing okay. And there's been a lot more human conversation, even in what would normally be transactional, even support emails and sales. So I think people are looking to connect with people, even if it's not necessarily in person, and even in channels where normally it's a much more business-like. I think people are injecting a lot more humanity into business, which has been nice. So and we see a lot of that this week, and just generally. And it's Friday, so it's good.
Yeah, I've experienced something interesting, which is I work full time, and now I have to homeschool my children, and I have a 6-year-old and a teenager, so keeping those two in the house is a challenge unto itself. But the other day I saw this little card, and it talked about, like, they say it takes a village to raise a child, but I swear it's going to take a vineyard to homeschool one. And I'm like, yes, indeed, it's taking a vineyard to homeschool one. And speaking of vineyards, anybody wants to show me what they're drinking and tell me what they are holding in their hands?
I guess I'll go first. Sure. I am celebrating the city of New Orleans, which is a great city, and I love being there, and hopefully we'll get together for work sometime. And this is the Sazerac, which is a drink, which is, I think, the official city drink for New Orleans, not the Hurricane, which is the awful pink thing the tourists get. It's actually made from, in this case, rye whiskey. I'm using a bullet rye today, which was the winner of our Star West whiskey testing challenge. And I mixed into that some absinthe and some Peychaud bitters, which is a pink colored bitter, giving the drink, what's left of it anyway, the sort of pinky orangey hue. It's very good, very strong, and I'm probably going to have to sign off afterwards. Cool.
Well, it's Tipsy Testing, and it's a virtual happy hour, so what else are we going to do?
Why not? What have you got there, Taylor?
Oh, I have been thinking, beach, summer, really, really wanted to be somewhere else other than my basement. And so Campari, Campari Orange is my drink today.
Cool. And Mr. Owen, what are you?
Yeah. So the classic clear liquid in a mason jar.
I like it.
It's just water.
Nice
But
glass.
for those viewers, they can pretend it is whatever they want to pretend it is.
Yes, they can project their desires into it.
Neat moonshine.
Yes.
Which, if the supply chains get interrupted, we may be going back to.
Yes. Yeah, we're not talking about that.
Did you know, actually, one slight thing. Cocktails were actually invented because of moonshine. Did you know that?
That's right. Yes, indeed.
I was reading the Washington Post, or I don't know, somewhere online. So much time online now. The reason the cocktails were invented was after Prohibition was lifted, and even during Prohibition, the quality of most of the spirits was terrible. So you would blend them with a small flavoring, which is why cocktails became popular.
Yes, that's right. That's why they dominate our lives now. Cheers.
Yeah, cheers.
Now, I have a question that came in from Kim Trott from Cavaris. Hi, Kim. We miss you. So Kim, like myself, is very intrigued by the whole donut situation going on with Owen. And her question is, what is your favorite donut flavor?
Oh, okay. So yeah, so I love donuts. I eat more donuts than I probably should. Every city I go to, I make sure I try some. And I've tried a lot of different donuts, and this is going to maybe upset some people, but I tend to grab plain glazed donuts. I like being able to compare all the places I go, and I want to have a baseline to know that I'm comparing something similar.
I see.
I can answer the question as to where is the best glazed donut I've ever eaten. There is a bakery in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania called Baylor's at the Reading Terminal Market. And it is without a doubt the best donut shop I've been to. And if you can't get to Philadelphia, Chicago is another great donut city.
Anything in the DC area? Anything in the DC area you'd recommend for our local viewers?
I have not found anything great in the DC area. If you know, do you know Shoppers Food Warehouse?
I do.
The supermarket. So Shoppers donuts are pretty classic for DC locals. They're getting rid of Shoppers more and more now. So like in Virginia, I don't know if we have any Shoppers left at all. But in Maryland and DC, maybe there are a few left.
Are they owned by a parent company that's rebranding them or something?
At least the ones in my neck of the woods are just gone.
Oh, okay.
So, but if you do have a Shoppers near you, I would recommend going in and trying one of their donuts.
Do you make your own donuts?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I make my own donuts. So actually, during this quarantine, something exciting that I'm doing actually with my mom. I love to bake, so we are doing what we're calling Around the World in 80 Bakes.
Yes, I saw that challenge.
Yeah. So every weekend, we started 3 weekends ago, so our third bake's coming up this weekend. We're baking something new from a different country around the world, which has been fun. And yeah, so donuts are going to hit that list at least one time over the next 80 weekends. So
did I see Fiji the last time I checked?
Yeah, we were in Fiji. We went to Fiji and made Fijian coconut Lolo buns last weekend. This weekend, we haven't revealed this to anyone, so this is maybe like top secret information all of the audience members is we're actually going to be making Liege waffles from Belgium.
Oh, nice. Oh, Belgium waffles are the best.
Belgium waffles are great. Do you do anything from Britain or Ireland yet? Any like meat pies or anything, savory pasties?
We have not, no, but we were talking before we got on here. London and Britain hold a close place to my heart. I lived there for a year after I did my undergrad in New York at Syracuse, repping my school colors. And so I have a whole list. We're supposed to do one bake from each country, but for Britain, I have like a list of 20 things that I want to do. So I don't know how we're going to figure that out that weekend that we land on Great Britain. So
well, you could always do Britain. You could do England, Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, and then real Ireland. So you could have like 4 or 5 different goes at it. To sort of
exactly.
That's not how it's done. There's randomness to it, right? It has to be like
random. Week after week, but you have 5 shots at the UK. And Australia and New Zealand have a lot of the same culinary traditions in terms of baked products as Britain. So you could do like meat pasties.
Forget Britain. You should do Georgian food.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
where the treasure trove of really good
With that
flavors.
egg thing you got me that time.
Mhm.
We were
Yeah.
in Eurostar in Prague, and then we were tired. We love Czech food, but we'd been there for a week, and Czech food is a very similar after a week of it. So by the
Mhm.
last day, we found a Georgian restaurant in Prague. So that was
Oh,
cool.
nice.
Yeah, there's a good variety of vegetarian and cheese-based and meats. So just give it a try. It's really, really good.
Yeah, I absolutely will.
Cool.
I guess for me, for donuts, I'm not really a donut person actually. Sorry, Owen. I Krispy Kreme, and I like the chocolate covered ones, and some of that stuff's good. I had like some kind of maple syrup one that was pretty cool. But one thing I do
Oh, yeah.
admire about donuts is, and this is a tip, if any of you are doing any kind of IT work, so this is IT and donuts. If you ever do work for the U.S. Marine Corps, the Navy, any military service, and you don't have a security clearance, but you want to get somewhere quickly, because you want to say you arrive at a base like Camp Pendleton in California, and you haven't got a security clearance. You're just a unclassified plebeian, but you want to get to meet someone quickly because you've got some IT stuff you're supposed to do. You could try and like pull rank, but everyone hates you for that. So what you do is you go to Krispy Kreme donuts outside the base, and you put them on the passenger seat. And then as you arrive at the security barrier, every person you meet, you give them a donut. We got on base in 5 minutes. We got to meet the general
we are
faster than
going
the guy
to
with the
cut
clearance.
this because this is not for public consumption, Adam.
Okay,
We're jeopardizing the integrity.
of the U.S. military.
Mm.
No, it just expedites the
Mhm.
access. So and in
With
America
hearts
in
and
general,
minds.
yeah, anywhere in America, if you need to meet someone who's important and you don't have the right permission, get a case.
Mhm.
Donuts are the ultimate elevator way. They're the way to get past the secretary, get the secretary to help you to get somewhere. So, they are the social lubricator. They are the way to ingratiate yourself. Donuts are amazing. They are like the best sales tool ever. Anyone in sales, buy donuts. Forget all that trading stuff.
I don't do donuts. I'm a middle-aged woman. I cannot afford donuts anymore. But when I were Krispy Kremes, I think Krispy Kreme donuts more so than
Dunkin' Donuts.
Yeah.
You were in Boston. You can't go back to Boston now.
As a matter of fact, very close to Tufts University, where I went to my graduate school, there was a Krispy Kreme factory where at midnight or 2 o'clock, after spending good 8 hours in the library, you would drive down and you watch those Krispy Kreme donuts being made and glazed, and you're like, yeah, that's life. So they have a soft spot in my heart. Therefore,
cool.
All right, cool. We have some questions from Internet Sphere that came in. So let's go by what makes more flow. So Kelly is asking us, how do you build and nurture community, and why is community important? I think we'll start with a person whose title actually says community manager. So Owen, can you set us up?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think the first thing to answer the question, I think the first thing we want to have is a basic understanding of what is community.
Mm-hmm.
Community is really a group of people that have a shared interest and have a sense of belonging. They have to feel like they're a part of something, and they have to be willing to work together to make that, whatever that thing is, better. That's kind of community at its root. I think the word community gets thrown around a lot without the intent of it being used in that way. I think it's important that it is used in that way. So to answer the question, why is it important? From a company perspective, community is, I think, vital. And I think that if you don't have community moving forward, it's going to be very challenging to build relationships with your customer base. I think right now a lot of companies are finding that because they didn't have communities. Now they're thrown into a position where they're not able to engage with them in different ways. And having a community that was supported prior to the situation we're in globally right now would have allowed people to kind of continue those conversations. So I think the big thing with the big reason why community is important is it allows you to engage with your customers, with your community members. It allows you to receive feedback from them much more quickly. It builds a sense of trust between a company and the people that are involved. I think one of the most important things that it does is it helps humanize the company. So it helps put a name to the face of the company. So I think that's really, really great. I heard the VP of marketing at LinkedIn was talking about community and social media and all sorts of things. And she had a really good point that people don't want to talk to logos. They want to talk to people. So if you can humanize your brand, especially in the online space, and create a sense of community behind your brand and really be there to help the people that are in your community, do whatever it is. I get, as a community manager at Techwell, I get a lot of random requests, people saying, hey, can you help me with this? Can you help me with that? I'm not an expert in software at all. I don't have an extensive background in software, but I'm able to go and try to help those people and take time out of my day to make their lives easier. And I think that's really all what a community is about.
Mm-hmm.
We should admit that Techwell team has done a very good job of harnessing those relationships, I think.
Right. I was just thinking of, when you said that, you reminded me of Nordstrom, the story of the guy who, they asked the guy at Nordstrom, can you help me with this, this, and this? In the end, he buys, someone asked him to buy tires, and the guy at Nordstrom, they don't sell tires at Nordstrom. He ends up going to some store to buy the tires to give to the guy that came to Nordstrom looking for tires. And I think, Owen, you're in that role. You're the guy whose job is to help people who, don't necessarily even know what they're asking for, but you can help them find that resource. Maybe it's not even someone at Techwell. It could be someone out there in the world that you've met at one of the events. But I think that's what community is about. It's not just your job title and just doing something that sells business. It's about understanding the person in a holistic way and being there for them.
But also,
we get that stuff too.
I think when the whole social media came out, people thought it was such a silver bullet, quickly get into your community and quickly getting everything done. And it is nothing but the opposite of that. You actually have to incrementally build your fan base, and because your community is the one that's going to carry you. They're going to amplify your message. They're going to be your champions. They're going to create that flywheel that, is going to spread the word and spread the good work that we are all doing collectively, trying to, help our clients make good decisions about what they need. That's what we're doing. This is the business we're in. We're trying to help people make the best decisions for their businesses using software that they can. So.
But I guess to add on to what Owen said about community, it's interesting. We did Inflectra last year. It was our first ever conference. Before that, we've been in business in 2006, and we've known people for almost 13 years now. Customers who've used our software in countries all over the world. People who we've never necessarily met. People who just knew us as a company that provided software. And so last year, some of the people who had been our biggest advocates, some people we didn't even know. We knew about them. They've been using our software for many, many years, been recommending it to people, and yet we didn't even know their names. And we found them out, and we invited them to come in person in Cincinnati, or Cincinnati, as we call it. And we had with one dinner one night where we had, I think, people from Techwell were there. We had Dennis from Germany and Remco from the Netherlands and Peter from Australia. And it was just amazing. And sure, people who we'd kind of known for 13 years as just emails, people we'd known just as very transactional, very, I guess, like a logo, like the guy LinkedIn said. It was someone we had a business relationship with, and we'd known them, but we'd never ever met them. And we all came together for dinner. It was kind of weird. It was almost magical. It was like meeting a family that a long lost family. It was like going to 23andMe and finding people you'd known, and the people that you'd basically felt you had a relationship with, but you've never actually physically met. That was so crazy.
Yeah,
it was like a family where
community. For sure, it built the sense of community. We're good friends
absolutely.
now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I think community brought us three together. I met Adam almost 2 years ago at Star, I believe it was Star Canada. Yeah, Star Canada.
That was our first Star. Then we did Star recently later. Yeah,
Star Canada. Yep. Yeah, and I, as Adam mentioned, led a walking tour, and Adam was one of the 10 people that had to miserably listen to me talk for an hour and a half as we toured around Toronto. And we went to dinner together and had a grand time. And that helped bring us together. And I think building community, that's one of the things that we've kind of done to help do that. And my team is fantastic about coming up with ideas and trying to implement things. And one of the things we've tried is the walking tours. We do what we call community dinners, where we get the group together at our conferences and we're able to go eat. No sales pitches, no marketing pitches, no nothing, no gimmicks. We're there to eat together and get to know each other and kind of build those relationships. And I think that, we do the community game night now at our conferences. It's another cool opportunity to get people into a room, and there's, no strings attached. Like, we're just going to play some board games and some card games, and just have a good time, and kind of sharing those memories together forever. And, we think it's something that is going to get people coming back time and time again. They're going to remember those moments where they feel like they were building relationships and that they feel like they were creating friends, and they're going to want to be a part of that moving forward.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I agree. It's somebody much smarter than I said at one time that people do not remember whether you were nice to them or not, but they will remember how they felt, how you made them feel. So if they feel like they belong in the tribe, they are going to, stay true to you and, be in the community. Okay. I have a couple more questions. And we have a question from Arlene, who is, I know she's listening. And Arlene's asking for an opinion, actually. Has the crisis altered the way we will think of testing in the future? And I know that Adam has a bit of a take on this, his own take on this.
Oh my goodness, that was before I had the most of the.
Well, Adam recently wrote this blog about he coined the term teletesting.
Teletesting. So. Well, you've teleworking. So we have testers, so teleworking becomes teletesting. A lot of it was one of the things we realized. So we switched really rapidly in our company, and many of our customers have, to teleworking when they hadn't planned on it. So obviously, if you planned on something, you've built ideas and structures. But as you move to teleworking, it accentuates some of the problems that you might have anyway, but of course much more quickly. So one of the problems we found was that people don't always know how someone else is going to want to communicate and understand. So when you're testing, one of the key problems with testing is if I'm a developer and you're a tester, or vice versa, we have to have a common understanding of what this thing is meant to do. And so one of the biggest challenges is we don't have a common understanding. And so if you think about, for example, Agile, you have an Agile team, you're meant to be close. One of the tenets of Agile is be close to the customer. Instead of documentation, have the customer's requirements, have the person right there. And then in the original formulation of Agile, they envisaged co-located teams in the same physical office where a physical client would walk in and talk to people. And if you ever had a question about what do you mean by this requirement or this idea or this feature, this user story, they were right there to answer. So most Agile teams many Agile teams don't always have access to a client that way. So you're often dealing with written requirements, emails, conference calls. It's imperfect. And then we move to teleworking suddenly, especially for clients that were used to very much in-person meetings. You've now got this massively distributed team without the framework or the cultural connections with each other to understand. So when a client writes or the project manager writes, we need to add this feature to do something, how is the testing team going to understand what does that client mean? What does the testing mean? How do we know if it's actually working? Do we even know if the team has built the right thing? So teletesting is about the idea of having the right kinds of communication, not just communication, because you can easily do 100 Zoom calls, but then you don't necessarily get the right answer. So it's having the right kind of communication with people to try and get a common understanding. And that might be doing a situation where you present your screen. Maybe it's actually having a session where you play some kind of game to try and get a common understanding of what this requirement is meant to be, or you model it out. Because it's not just about communicating, because anyone can talk and anyone can listen, but to get a common understanding, you have to have the same frame of reference, and that's often the hardest thing. And so in the paper, I talk about ways to do that. And one of the challenges that we've often found is that everyone loves Google Chat in our company. It's like, we use it instead of Slack, but it's the same idea, a stream of messages. The problem with Slack or Google Chat or anything like that will be it's lost. So people will message us, oh, this feature should work this way, this feature should work that way. And everyone goes, oh yeah, they're right. Oh no, they're right. And there's no common understanding. It's just a stream of consciousness. So having tools and mechanisms to ensure we get some synthesis of the information, not just a stream of information. It's very hard anyway, and online and distributed is even more hard. So I think having ways to have a team come together and be able to synthesize information without blame, without people getting upset, it's very hard to do, especially when you're distributing as a kid crying in the background. You want to type on chat. And I think it's having the maturity to step back and say, chat is not the right vehicle for this type of conversation right now. We need to have a different kind of thing for this particular situation versus using what's the most comfortable medium. And that's what I think we've seen for us, is that having the right medium for the right message for the right type of activity we're doing, so we don't end up with lots and lots of competing agendas and tons of noise and no real information. What do you think,
Well,
Owen?
I'm not a tester, but I did see one joke on Twitter. It said, somebody asked, what is the first thing that's going to change with, telework? And they said, pair programming. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. You can't really do anything in pairs
No,
anymore.
That's not
but
true.
Maybe you can do virtual pairs.
No, you can do that. There are tools you can share your screen and work on each other's machine, actually. So
yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about taking advantage of the technology we have. So I've been on a distributed team now for almost 2 years, fully distributed agile team for almost 2 years. And, it's about taking advantage of the tech we have. And Adam hits it right on the head. Certain types of messaging should be shared in different ways. Messages that maybe require a little bit more of a understanding, that are maybe a little bit more complex, should probably be shared over chat, over a video chat versus over a typed message.
Right.
I think it depends on kind of the context of the message. I think a super powerful tool is something we're doing right now is, we're having this conversation in person,
Yeah.
We're online, but we're still in person. We're getting to see each other's faces. I think a lot of agile teams struggle with the idea of turning their cameras on and getting to see each other's faces. Yes. And I think it's a huge proponent. I'm a huge proponent of making sure your cameras are on. There's a lot of different social cues and cues that you can see when you're actually looking at someone that allows you to make different decisions. And, maybe I'm saying something and Adam's like, I'm like, Adam, you look a little bit confused. I wonder if I can explain it in a different way for you, or something like that, where you wouldn't get to do that through a text message or through an email. So I think that it's definitely going to shift how we do testing and how we do software development and how we do work in general. This whole thing has kind of thrown us into this situation, which I was talking to Nathan Harvey of Google the other day, and one thing he brought up is this isn't really work from home. This is work from home in the middle of a global pandemic. Those are two different things. People were thrown into this, and they might not have got an opportunity to prepare and set themselves up in the best way possible to be successful. But I think it is going to bring out of this, what it's going to bring out of this is that people are going to want the opportunity to work from home more. They're going to get more comfortable working from home as we go through this over the next however long this takes. And I think companies are going to realize some of the advantages of being work from home. Being able to recruit people that aren't necessarily in their geolocation. I know you all at Inflectra have people that don't work together, Techwell, or don't work in a co-located space.
Right.
We're Techwell and Coveros are, Techwell and Coveros are fully distributed teams. We have people in at least 4 different states, maybe 5 different states, 6 different states, and we're able to work together. And I think that it's about using the technology we have to do that.
I also think that one of the dimensions that we don't often talk about is working from home and having the technology to serve as a conduit is going to change a lot of how disability is, like how people with disabilities participate in the workforce. And I think that opens up an opportunity, a really, really good opportunity for them. Oftentimes they're not able to physically be present at places. So I think, speaking of what Adam has variously mentioned, equalizing effect of this technology and this forced digital transformation that we're all, going through right now, I think that is going to make some less visible parts of society become more integrated into the mainstream labor market. So that's a plus for them for sure.
I think I think what we're going to see is also not necessarily a whole move to the working from home, because some people don't like working from home, maybe because they have young kids, or they've got a partner that's a stay-at-home parent, or their home situation is not well equipped. They like coming to the office also because it gives a more clear separation. As Owen mentioned, one of the things about this whole situation is it wasn't planned. So what I've seen, and we've seen, I think the industry has seen, is that a lot of people are just working more. Because not only are you working from home, but you can't leave your home. You can't go to a nightclub. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't do a whole bunch of other activities. So you've got people working from home and just working a lot more. And when you work a lot more, you don't necessarily work as efficiently, and you feel like you're getting burnt out with work, and there's less control over it. Or you work more strange hours. We've seen people with young kids in the company, and so they're working like late evenings to make up for stuff, and it's all good. But I think if you were just to take working from home as in its isolation, as opposed to working without being able to leave your house, it might be different. But I do think a lot of the lessons are true, that people will want the ability to work from home and have better tools. But I think for us, it will certainly be an equalizer. I think in the past, the people who worked in other geos who weren't in our primary office were probably disadvantaged and we didn't realize it. So they were almost like disabled citizens of our company, in that they were disabled by not being in the DC area. And so we as a company are going to be equalizing that disability by, I think, continuing a lot of the practices we have now. Even if we're in the office, we'll still treat it like we're in basically a bunch of distributed places that happens maybe 2/3 of them might be in one physical place, but we'll still do it on an online platform, so that our colleagues who are not in the office won't be second-class citizens anymore.
Yeah, so we actually talk about this. This is a bit of a shameless plug on one of the podcasts we just produced.
Okay.
We talk about this idea of, if one person's distributed, everyone's distributed. So even if you're sitting in a room together, you should, if there's other people that are not, you should distribute yourself and go fully virtual, because the person that's, maybe based in Europe, for example, and we're all three based somewhere in the DC Med. If I turn over and look at Adam and say, that person in Europe has no idea what I just said, and they miss out on those conversations. Whereas we're fully distributed, it makes those conversations easier to have. And if there is a side comment, everyone gets to participate in that side comment. I think that you're right. It really is. I like the way that you put it. It's kind of equalizing the playing field for people who might not have been able to be part of those co-located conversations.
Yeah, they were second-class citizens before, or second-class employees without us even realizing it. So I think we'll probably go back to a largely being in the office, mainly because a lot of our employees like the office, like the fact they can go to the office, work at 9, come back at 5, and have a break, and they haven't got kids running around. But on the other hand, they'll still like the idea that when we do these meetings, we will have our guys in Europe and in Boston all on this camera. We'll all be sitting at our desks in DC doing this video chat, as opposed to going into a room and having someone on the phone on a crappy audio teleconference, which we used to do, with no video, and them barely participating. I think
there's silver lining for sure. To any situation, there's silver lining. There is. We are coming up on. We're over time now, but the last thing I wanted to touch upon would be, we spoke about this a little bit about new opportunities created by the situation, but also I would like to maybe pick your brains about like what it is that this current situation, what it means for companies that are putting together conferences and events in person, and everybody's going virtual, everything's happening in virtual reality now. What would be something that we are looking for in terms of short term, and what is that's going to be a more longer term change that comes out of this situation? Who wants to take that one? That's my question to
That's definitely. I think I'll give it to Owen first.
Yeah. So I don't want to speak. I'm here representing Techwell and Caveros. I don't want to speak necessarily as this is the fact of law. We've heard a lot of different things about kind of what the future holds. Potentially that we could reconvene at conferences in 6 months. Other people saying that it might not be till 2023. Other people saying that big physical conference might never happen again. Now the conferences, 1,000, 2,000 people, maybe not. But 10,000, 20,000, 50,000 person conferences might never happen ever again. So I don't know. O'Reilly puts on some big physical events every year. O'Reilly Software, and they just basically canceled all of their. Actually, Arlene gave me that tip, that they actually shut down permanently, canceled all of their physical conferences. Not for this year, like permanently shut down that division. So I think that that's obviously one challenge. I've heard that there's a lot of people in the event space, in software and outside of software, that think that virtual conferences are going to be the new future. As a community manager, I find that hard to believe. I feel that people are always going to want an opportunity to get to see each other and kind of go through that trials and tribulations and challenges of their daily life and their work life together in person. And I think that we're going to see a bigger need for more regional type meetups and more regional type events where people aren't traveling to a 150,000 person conference, but are rather getting together with, 100, 200, 500, 1,000, 2,000 people, where it's a little bit more intimate. But I think that there's always, as humans, we're always going to have a need for connection. And I think that, I don't know what the short term holds for us. We were talking before the hour that most conferences through June have canceled. We've seen some as far as November and December have already canceled of this year. So I don't know what the immediate impact is going to be. I know that companies are really trying to get into the virtual space. And I think that that presents a whole new challenge from a educational community marketing, all sorts of different challenges that produces. But I think that there will always be a thirst to get together in person and congregate in that way. I don't ever see that going away.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess I'll speak a little bit on this one because it's interesting for us. We've always had the kind of the reverse problem is that our customers are spread thinly. We have our customer base is mostly North America and Western Europe, and Europe in general and North America. And we do have customers in Africa and South America and Australia. And so for us, it was always very hard to put on a physical conference because we needed to have enough customers in one place to be able to do any kind of event. So last year we were able to do something by having one of our largest customers effectively provide a bunch of people in Cincinnati. This year we're going to do it in DC, and we're figuring we're going to basically cater to our North American audience and kind of disenfranchise our European audience to a large degree. And when we did that, we had already had emails coming in saying, "Oh, we're in in London or in Europe, the rest of Europe. Can we attend? Are you doing one in London next year?" And we're like, "Well, we're still a small company. We're still trying to figure that out." Now the whole virtual conference for us actually is like, "Oh, we can invite everyone. This is great." So actually, for a company that's doing software, when we have customers, and you may have like 3 people in Nigeria, 2 people in Kenya, 20 or 30 people in South Africa who want to come, none of these for us will make sense to do a physical event, but a virtual event is perfect. So I think we will become, virtual first, but I think in the end we may do something in Europe or North America that's physical, in person, in addition to that. So this year we're going to try something called, one ticket, 2 events, which is the idea that you buy a ticket for the virtual event, and that's what you're actually buying. And then when you buy the virtual event, where we can do physical events, we'll replicate the content in the physical event. Your ticket's valid, and you pay a food and drink supplement. So it's an interesting, completely different way. We're unbundling the conference. The content is what you buy, and then you can add on. And I can imagine in 3 or 4 years we could end up with a situation for us where you buy the conference for a fixed amount, and then you can add on. Oh, I want to buy these 3 employees in North America, these 3 guys in Europe. We'll have like regional, events. Maybe the future is going to be networked regional events. We'll have a Star, Star East in Star West at the same week, and Eurostar and Star Australia, which I know Alison would love, and it's all integrated. It's all networked in VR. You have like your holograms, and it could be one giant virtual continuum, but we're not actually physically traveling and contagion. That could be the future.
One of the silver lining things that comes to mind would be that the technology behind conferencing and servicing the different types of audiences that go to conferences, including sponsors and other things, that technology, I think, is going to improve. Like, it will skyrocket, because already we are seeing there is so much need for all these big conferences. We as a company, we go to these conferences, we present these conferences. So it's in our own interest to have that sector be developed further, and for there to be much more to engage on, and much more, better looking e-booths, and better looking or better feeling experience for the people who are there to engage with our content, with the presentations, with speakers. So for us, it's also interesting how fast the business is going to catch up to this new reality of everybody needing to be meeting and networking and feeling closer in the virtual space. So that's interesting how fast that's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but speaking personally, because I often go to these events, like, I just want to get there. I just want to go somewhere and be there in person and be in that city and be part of that sort of ambiance and that energy. So I
think that's what we're missing is the fact that most people go to a conference for 3 days and then spend another 2 to 3 days on their own time, like doing sightseeing, and that's what you don't get with the online.
Yeah, and don't get tours, city tours, and
I'm gonna miss out on the travel.
Restaurants.
Yep, the travel, the food, that's gonna be the toughest part. I think also just seeing people, getting together with people, and that human connection is. You can do it pretty well through the technology we have virtually, but it's never going to be the same as getting to see someone in a real life in-person environment. So it will be interesting to see how this evolves over the next. I'm thinking this is a multi-year evolution. So.
Right, but this is kind of cool too. And we saw. I think I saw you last year in Canada, and it's like we're catching up. It's nice. I mean, the video chat really makes a big difference. I remember reading a book as a kid. It was called Future Cities. It was a book on the technology, what the future would look like. And I remember them showing the idea that you'd be in a conference with someone in another country, another time zone. I was like, oh, this is such crazy future stuff. And now kind of got it.
Future is now.
Here it is.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah.
cool. Good for the environment too.
Indeed. Yeah. Yes, for sure. I don't have any more questions, gentlemen. And we are on 45 minutes, 15 past our allotted time. So, well, let me see if there are any questions coming in live. I do not see any.
No, there are none.
All right, then. Thank you, both of you, for joining us today. And we are going to have another one of these. Owen, you're, of course, invited to participate. We will have Paul Grisafi.
Yeah.
Grisafi.
From Magenic.
From Magenic, joining us and talking about everything, you know, drinks and rock and roll. And
he's the rock and roll guy.
He's a rock star.
So
he is.
That's going to be next Friday at 5 p.m. And so we'll see you there.
We're going to have some rock and roll music. It's going to be fun. See you then.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you all.
Right there.